Hello, good people of YouTube. Mountbatten here. And today, well, technically not today, last week we learned that with the game's upcoming 10th anniversary celebration, Wargaming is giving us 32,000 still, or 32,000 doubloons, for taking part in the 10th anniversary event. If you want to know more details on that, you can check out the video right here, where we go over the dev blog announcing that event. Now, of course, right after that announcement, I am immediately flooded with questions about, hey, Sealord, should I get this still ship, or this still ship, or this still ship once I get my 32,000 still from the 10th anniversary event? So, in today's video, I figured we would go over my top 5 still ships that I think you should get with your 32,000 free steel. So, that is what we are talking about in today's video. But first, do you like history? Of course you do. It's why you're playing this game. Then make sure you check out one of yesterday's videos, which was our trailer for our next upcoming cinematic video, which will be Leyte Gulf. You can check out the video from yesterday, get a sneak peek at what we're doing. It's going to be very similar to the Battle of Jutland video. We'll be going through the major engagements of the Battle of Leyte Gulf and recreating them in World Warships with a little bit of help from War Thunder along the way. So make sure you check out that trailer, which was released yesterday. Link to it should have popped up somewhere around here as well. Now that the self-promoting is out of the way, let's go ahead and get on into it. Number 5, which is the Tier 10 British battle cruiser, the Incomparable. The Incomparable is probably one of the most fun steel ships currently available, simply because the thing is just so stupid. This is a beautiful monstrosity of Britishness. It's this giant battle cruiser armed with 6 20-inch guns, which are, of course, redonkulous in and of itself, but it also has the concealment of like a light cruiser. It actually has better concealment than a lot of higher tier light cruisers. You can get this thing's concealment down to 10 kilometers and change, which is just dumb. You also have torpedoes that go out to, 10.5 kilometers as well, so you can technically stealth torp with this thing. It does get these single British drop torpedoes as well, because why not? On top of course, having the 20-inch guns and the torpedoes, it is a battle cruiser, so it's very fast and maneuverable. You get the speed boost. You get a 3-kilometer hydro, so like a personal use hydro, which is great for, getting a little bit of a heads up for those torpedoes. And of course, submarines are everywhere now, so it's nice having that in your tool belt. But it is very much a battle cruiser, and it gives up a lot of its survivability for its, battle cruiseriness and having these 6 20-inch guns. You have exceptionally thin armor, pretty much everything with mildly large guns at tier 10 on up. So like, the large cruisers, the Agirs, Stalingrad, Kronstadts, Alaska, so forth and so on, they can bully you pretty well. Pretty much anything with like decent AP can and will have their way with you. And of course, the HE spam, everyone's pinning you with their HE. So you do not want to engage in prolonged engagements with the Incomparable. She does get a bit of a super heal to kind of get her through that. It's not like the Conqueror super heal, but it can regenerate a pretty good chunk of your HP in one go, which is very nice. But still not something that you can win a prolonged engagement in. It's great for popping up next to somebody 10 kilometers away saying, hi, I have 6 20-inch guns. Goodbye, and blapping them in their citadel. It is fantastic for that. The 6 20-inch guns, they can be very frustrating at times. From, 11 kilometers away, they're fine, but of course, not every engagement at tier 10 takes place at 11 kilometers, as I'm sure most of you are well aware of. So when you get into a more traditional engagement at tier 10, there's a lot of frustration involved with these 20-inch guns. It feels like they can't hit the broadside of a barn from within a barn that's already inside another larger barn. That's how inaccurate the guns feel when you have to use them at range. So, not something I would highly recommend. Granted, you only need 1 shell to connect and get some citadel damage in there, and you'll be doing like 20k damage with 1 shell, which is really funny and kind of makes it worth it in the end. But this is a fun ship, great ship for random battles, just stupidness, not really overly competitive, wouldn't really use it in tier 10 clan battles. We tried it when it came out, and it was kind of fun, and it works sometimes, but nah, it doesn't. The guns are nowhere near consistent enough to be used in like a clan battle setting. Tier 10 ranked, probably not either. There's just way better ships to use there. maybe tier 10 brawls, yeah, it can be goofy, dumb fun in there, and maybe like asymmetrics and such too, again, just bullying the crap out of, those lower tier ships with 20-inch guns. Sure, it can probably work there, but if you want a dumb, stupid, fun steel ship, look no further than the Incomparable. There is another dumb, stupid, fun ship on this list, and we'll get to it when we get to it, but this one is definitely one that I think most of you would be interested in. And again, it's a free steel ship with the steel you're getting from the 10th anniversary, so not the worst way to spend it. But it is at number 5. Our next one, however, is a bit more of a serious ship, and that is the Tier 10 premium, or well, steel Soviet large cruiser, the Stalingrad, the one and the only, the Russian bias incarnated, basically, right, or in ship form. And the Stalingrad is a ship that definitely has aged in World of Warships. It's aged relatively well for ships that are the age of the Stalingrad, which is what, 8 years, 7 years old, around that milestone. And a lot's changed in the time from Stalingrad's release to modern day Stalingrad, to where it's definitely not the unstoppable titan it once was. I think the background footage does a pretty good job of demonstrating this. One of the things that have definitely hurt the Stalingrad over the years are airstrikes. Stalingrad's thing for years, just like every large Soviet ship, is go to an island, park next to it, go bow into the enemy team, and force them to burn half of the match trying to sink you. Because you've got great armor for a cruiser, high HP for a cruiser, and back in the day you used to have the cruiser burn time too, so it took forever to try to burn down a Stalingrad. So, that's not the case anymore. Obviously, with things like airstrikes making that very, well, not possible when they're present, as again will be demonstrated in the background footage. So you're forced to play Stalingrad in a little bit more of a mobile way now. And with the Commander rework, you can no longer take the survivability skills that you used to be able to take back in the day to get your burn time down to almost nothing. And now you've also been slapped with the battleship burn time instead of the cruiser burn time, so that sucks. Needless to say anything about submarines, AP skip bombers, AP rockets now, so yeah, a lot hasn't gone well for the Stalingrad over the years. However, she is still one hell of a cruiser. Those 305mm guns are so friggin' sweet. You get the Soviet shell ballistics, which TLDR, the shells fly through the air in such a way that they maintain their penetration much better over range than similar caliber shells do. So this means at longer ranges you'll be getting, good pins and even citadels on pretty much anything that has a citadel. The Soviet AP also has, it's really weird, it has incredibly high penetration values, but the fuse time is so short that it's going to penetrate the target ship, but it's also going to detonate at the appropriate time, which also translates to lightly armored ships, where like a Smolensk, for example, we've all shot Smolensk in the Citadel and our AP just goes right through it. The Stalingrad, though, despite having incredible penetration, it's got that short fuse time, so it still explodes in the Citadel of the Smolensk, even though it's got more penetration, and then it can turn around and Citadel like a Montana with no problem. It's Soviet space magic, right? Those guns are still so good, that's what I'm saying. And you get the 12-kilometer Soviet radar, which is an excellent utility to have in your tool belt when you're, well, really in anything, ranked, randoms, clan battles. Great tool to have. So you get a great set of guns, and the ship is still really tough, don't get me wrong. Like, especially in like a competitive setting where you are going up against a smaller team and such, you basically have a second battleship that has guns that hits truly like a battleship gun, like battleship guns do. You get radar, you get a tanky ship. It's really great for that. And in random battles, it still definitely can shine. I mean, like, in the background footage, yeah, I'm having to run for my life a lot of time because, well, I'm being bombarded by airstrikes constantly. But man, when you get someone's broadside, it does some real damage. So yeah, you couple that with like Kuznetsov, and you've got one hell of a ship here that I would highly recommend you pick up. Get a little taste of that Soviet bias life in your World of Warships experience. Alright, going our way down now to number 3, we have the second dumb, goofy, hilarious ship on this list, and that is the Italian destroyer, the Barbiano. So the Barbiano, yeah, I'm sure most of you guys are familiar with this ship. It's one of the newer dumb ships in the game. It's an Italian cruiser. They stripped all the guns off of it, slapped in a bunch of 90mm guns with sap, which apparently this was a real design, which has me asking questions about how much wine the Italians were drinking at this time. Must have been a lot. But anyway, yeah, this thing's dumb. You have a stupid amount of shells flying through the air constantly. They're sap shells, so they penetrate a bunch. They do good alpha damage. When you push the funny F button, you go from having 26mm of pin to 34mm of pin, so now you can bully battleships and heavy cruisers and such at the slightest of cost to your reload time as well. You get the exhaust smoke generator with an engine boost, so you can run full tilt while blasting whatever the hell it is that you're blasting with all these 90mm sap shells. So yeah, it's a stupid ship. It can, in most cases, just obliterate whatever other gunboats it comes across when it comes to destroyers, especially at closer ranges. However, it's a massive target. It's not the most maneuverable destroyer ever. It's the least stealthy of the Tier 10 destroyers, too. So by destroyer standards, it can be seen from space. It doesn't have a hydro. It doesn't have torpedoes. All it has is a smoke generator, an engine boost, and a damage con. That's it. No torpedoes, no other utility. That is it. So it's all in those guns, and yeah, when those guns are going, it's pretty stupid. But there's plenty of cases, it gets jump scared by a heavy cruiser. It runs into some torpedoes because it doesn't have hydro, and you're trying to sit at a smoking farm. So it's not quite the nutty ship it's made out to be. It's goofy, don't get me wrong, and in the right situation it's downright terrifying, but it definitely does have its downsides, which is what I'm trying to say here. So this falls in the same category as the Incomparable, a dumb, goofy, fun ship for random battles. Probably won't go very far in competitive. I can see it maybe working in ranked or asymmetrics and brawls and such, but not really too far in clan battles or anything like that. But yeah, a goofy, fun ship, and one that I would once again highly recommend you pick up. Great with Sansonetti too. You should then pick up Sansonetti. So easy to pop his skills on this thing. Where are you going? Now look what you've done. Alright, going down to number 2. We have the Tier 10 inherently underpowered pan-European destroyer, the Ragnar. So this is like the opposite of the Barbiano. This is a terrific competitive destroyer. This destroyer is so good at bullying other destroyers out of the cap and murdering them in the process. This is probably one of the best cruisers for clan battles next to like the Småland, right? So the Ragnar, gameplay-wise, the classes are different, but just speaking from a gameplay perspective, it's basically a Småland that gave up its torpedoes to get 150mm guns, which of course gives you good HE alpha, which means you can bully other destroyers out of the cap that much better. And it has radar, 7.5 kilometer radar, it gets a heal, and it gets an emergency engine boost, where you get a higher engine boost than your standard engine boost, but it's much shorter. So it's basically for you to skedaddle out of the cap after you get ganged up on by the enemy destroyers, because that's about the only way that other destroyers are going to be able to outgun you, unless it's something like a Harugumo that's built right and knows exactly what he's doing. Pretty much every other situation, one-on-one, you should be winning that fight in Ragnar with your HE alpha and of course with your heal as well. So yeah, this thing's great. You go to the cap, you bully other destroyers out of the cap, you take your cap, and then you can defend it or move on to the next cap. Your detection range is the same as your radar range, so if you get spotted, pop your radar. Whatever's spotting you, it's going to be within your radar range, and again, unless it's like a full gun built Harugumo with someone that really knows what they're doing, you're probably going to win the fight 9 out of 10 times. The Ragnar is definitely a tricky destroyer to play. I wouldn't recommend if it's your first destroyer ever, but like if if you've been like on the fence about it and you've been looking at it, you've had some experience in destroyers, it definitely is a good pickup. But it does take some time definitely to get used to, because it falls in that category of destroyer, not unlike the Barbiano, where it's more of a very small light cruiser than an actual destroyer. But unlike the other light cruiser destroyers like the Cabros and the Colbert, you still go to the caps, you still protect the caps, you still bully destroyers, you still take the cap, unlike those ships which are more of running gunboats and don't really go near the caps, and they're supporting the destroyers in the cap. You're still very much the destroyer in the cap with the Ragnar. Big downside of the Ragnar, though, is that, of course, it doesn't have torpedoes. So if you get a battleship that, let's say, you're by yourself, or maybe it's you and like one of the ship protecting a cap, you've got like a battleship pushing into you. If you're in something like the Smallland, you can, of course, throw torpedoes at him to kind of ruin his day and discourage him from pushing up any further. Can't do that in the Ragnar. That's, definitely a downside of the ship. But again, you get the bigger guns with the better alpha, right? So that more than makes up for it, in my opinion. But yeah, definitely you don't have that dissuasion technique there with the Ragnar. But yeah, for competitive, great ship for that. If you are looking to join a clan, if you have a Ragnar, that's probably almost an instant in with a lot of clans right there. So yes, definitely a good ship, one that's worth picking up, especially if you are a destroyer lover. Alright, going all the way down now to number 1, we have the one, the only, French bias itself, the Bourgogne. I know I have to include the Bourgogne in every still ship video. If I don't, the cult of Bourgogne will come to my house, murder me with a baguette, and then nail me to, I don't know, what's something French? I don't know, a bigger baguette, right? I'll be crucified on a crucifix made of baguettes, right? But on a more serious note, it is a really good battleship. If you've played the Alsace, which is one of the better Tier 9 battleships in the game, in my opinion, it's that, but turned up to 11. You get more accurate guns than the Alsace. You get, I was going to say a better secondary suite. It's a different secondary suite, more tuned towards AA duties rather than secondary duties, which some people swear by the Alsace secondaries. My experience, the Alsace secondaries just kind of break when you look at them. But, it's got better AA. It gets the reload booster, which is fantastic, right? Because now you have the 12 15-inch guns of the Alsace with a reload booster, meaning you can cut down that reload time in half, and they're more accurate. And 12 15-inch shells will still very much hurt whatever it is that you're shooting at, right? Because, sure, 15 inches is pretty small by tier 10 standards. We're talking about main battery guns, but it still hurts, right? And with the accuracy of the Bourgogne's guns, oh yeah, it's going to do damage. And if not, okay, hit the 1 key. Now you're spamming HE at the target. You're throwing 12 accurate 15-inch HE shells at the target. You will be setting fires. You will be burning stuff down. So if it angles to you, burn it down. Shows you broadside, blap it with AP. Destroyer pops up, have HE loaded, hit that reload booster, make that destroyer cry by delivering 3 quick salvos back to back to back to him with that reload booster. It's a great ship for that. You get the engine boost as well. Now, a massive downside is the fact that this is a French ship, and despite it just being French, another downside is the fact that it's coated in 32 millimeters of armor, so it gets pinned everywhere by pretty much anything at tier 10 that has HE, because as I've always said for years, everyone and their mom at tier 10, they're trying to get their HE shells pitting 32 millimeters of armor so they can do good, consistent penetration damage to higher tier ships, because their bows and their sterns are 32, and most of their decks are as well, bow and stern decks. But the French, everything's coated in 32 millimeters of armor, so you're going to be eating HE. You have a tier 9 battleship's armor scheme and a tier 9 battleship's HP, because this is an Alsace up tier to tier 10, so you got to deal with all that. But it is a fantastic ship. The guns are accurate. The shells go pretty much where they want you to go, where you want them to go in most cases. There's still RNG, don't get me wrong, but it's very accurate, especially coming from the Alsace. You get the engine boost, so you can kind of run around in the mid-ish position in the pack, spamming HE, blapping things with AP. You see a gap in the flank, run down that flank, find them broadsides, pump them 15-inch shells into the broadside with your reload booster, rinse, wash, repeat, profit. Fantastic ship. I do very much love it. It did take me a minute to get it, though, but I was very happy once I did pick her up. She was like my 4th or 5th still ship, which means like it took me like 3 years to get it. Because typically, you know, like I get a still ship, and then it's like, okay, this is pretty cool. And then they release a new still ship. It's like, oh, dang, well, I need to get this new still ship. But then by the time I'm almost to that next new still ship, they release another still ship, right? So it's like a never-ending hurdle, which is, of course, what Wargaming wants it to be. But yeah. So, guys, those are my top 5 still ships to pick up using that free 32,000 steel that Wargaming will be giving us for the 10th anniversary event. Let me know in the comments down below what you think. What are your top 5 still ships? What would you suggest players pick up in this time of free still? Let me know all that more in the comments down below. Hope you guys enjoyed. Have a wonderful Monday, wonderful rest of your week, and hope to catch you guys in the next one.